I think there's a growing awareness at the federal level and the state level about these problems of food insecurity and just sort of the nature of the needs of the student population. I think we hear it even in the discussions right now in Congress when they're talking about the new Higher Education Act and who the new student is. One of the ways, particularly we haven't really seen too many Democratic proposals yet, but one of the things we've been seeing on the Republican proposals is the response seems to be, well, that maybe everyone doesn't need to go to college. Maybe there ought to be other kinds of options like apprenticeships programs. I think there's an assumption that those programs would be maybe less expensive and more sort of from start to finish more efficient for certain populations of students. I think there's other people who look at that and say, well, that's apprenticeship for them, but not for us, you know. So I think there's some questions about the assumptions behind some of those programs. But I mean, clearly the broader cost issues about higher ed and the challenges that students facing are being played out. You do hear it at the federal level. I mean, we've also heard a lot of discussions at the federal level about extending the Pell Grant program for for programs that are much shorter than a degree. I think that's actually in the Republican bill at the moment, and I suspect it'll be in the Democratic bill too, some version of that. People realizing that not everybody wants to come back for a four-year degree. Some students might want to come back for a shorter set of credentials. We've just seen this new measure coming out of Georgia. It's still a little bit ill-formed, but the Georgia Board of Regents has just announced a plan for a new kind of they're calling it a new kind of degree. They call it Nexus, N-E-X-U-S. I think sounds like another word for a certificate, but it sounds like it's they're the government of the State Higher Education Board. That's not the legislature, but the State Higher Education Board is saying maybe we need a degree that's like an 18 credit degree that the Georgia Board of Regents will issue. So it'll be interesting to see exactly what that looks like. It's not an industry credential, it's a higher ed credential. It's supposed to be very industry informed. So yeah, I think we're seeing a lot of response to some of this. To the changing nature of the student body, the student and the new student, the needs of the new student. You know, at the same time, with all this, it's something that I wondered a lot about when I was working on this. Everything you hear about sort of, convenience and flexibility for all these degrees, that all sounds great. On the other hand, you always sort of wonder, is it, education light? And what doesn't get put into the mix? I think we make a lot of assumptions that adults want the program that's going to help them get the best, the quickest path to a promotion to a better job. And I think that's probably largely true in most cases for adults. But that's not the only thing they want out of their education. They often want something more. I've talked to some folks at the Empire State Labor College, and they show me the copy of this book that they put out, which is like writings from their students in their labor college program. These are all just about all of them are members of unions who come to this BA program. I mean, and it's essays, it's poems, it's photo essays. To just think of these students as, they're just doing this to get, 10 credits so they can get to their promotion, and let's just give it to them nights and weekends, 2 hours a week, and that'll be that. I think that really shortchanges even what the students want. I mean, they want, and as another counselor I talked to said, they want something that nobody can take away from them. They want this thing that they can hang on to. So yes, they want a degree that's going to help them with their job, and yes, they need it in a convenient time schedule and probably in an accelerated format. But that doesn't mean it should be just like cheap, not less expensive, but it shouldn't be a less than degree. It needs to be a real degree.